Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Marketing Power Hour with Christine Carey. Today, we are here talking about finding your company brand, character, and archetype. This is going to be really awesome. There's a worksheet involved, as always, with Christine's workshops. Very thorough information. I'm excited for this topic. It's going to be good. Anyway, we are the Central Mountain Small Business Development Center. What we do is, offer free confidential consulting for pretty much anyone in the business space. We also offer these low-cost or no-cost workshops. Next slide, Christine. Okay, and then here we are in the center, that yellow blob there. We serve Chaffee, Lake, and Park counties. However, if you are outside of those counties, you're welcome to attend our workshops. And there are several centers across the state, 15 in total, that are able to assist you in any way. So even if you're outside of our three, there's definitely still assistance available for you. And next. And then finally, this is us. This is our team here. Jamie is our director, is unavailable today, but she is our leader of this consultant team, and we are just here to help reach out if you have any questions about consulting opportunities, workshops that we have coming up, any way that we can help you with resources. Enough about that. Let's hop to Christine. Christine Carey. She's going to be talking to us today. She's the founder of Brand Guide, and I'll let her talk a bit more about what she's here to provide today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Devin. I'm excited to be here once again for the Marketing Power Hour. And today we're going to talk about finding your company brand, character, and archetype. We'll get through all the details. I do have a work sheet that I'll talk to also. But a little bit about me. I work in the food and beverage, the natural products category. My company is called Brand Guide, and I work with all kinds of small businesses, emerging businesses, to really plan your content strategy and really get aligned for your brand messaging, so that your vision and mission and everything aligns, so that then you can start to think of things like your brand personality, your brand character, and aligning how you're going to talk really consistently to your target audience. I primarily work in food and beverage. I've worked with Honey Rock Landing, which is out on the Western Slope. Steve, you might know about them. And then I've worked with, Urban Pantry and Keep Brands and Healthy Scoop, working on things like you can see on the right-hand side, packaging and photography, website, again, content strategy, social media, all kinds of elements that help you build awareness for your company, but also do it in a really consistent way, because you definitely want to have those guardrails of what you're talking about, so that your customer really understands who you are. And when we're talking about that consistent storytelling, it really aligns with how your personality is built for your company, for your brand. Is it personality that is you, because you're the founder and you're the service provider, or is it your team that you're talking about? And that personality is that brand character. And what we're going to talk about today is why building that personality is really important. And then connecting it to archetypes. And archetypes really are exactly what things are like for humans, personality traits, somebody who's really a sage, or really educational, or, really informational, right down to somebody who's a rebel, or who's really creative. And looking at those different personalities that are people focused and applying them to your company and to your brand. At the end, I'll review the workbook. You'll get the recording from today with these slides and the workbook. So you don't have to worry about the specifics in the workbook of doing things today. But what we're really going to talk about is the 12 different archetypes, and looking at those from and aligning them to your company, and kind of getting a feeling for who you personally are and how it relates to your company. At any point, please pop questions in the chat. If you have anything, I will kind of stop throughout and see if there are any questions. As Devin mentioned at the end, if you're unwilling to ask a question during the recording, we'll stop the recording and you can ask a question, anything that you want. Okay, so talking about brand character, it's really about your tone of voice, how you talk, how you share your story about you personally as the founder, your services that you're providing or the products that you talk to. And so it has a lot of visual components and word components. So really making sure, again, that you are consistent in your storytelling, because just like a person, because we're talking a lot about personality traits, just like a person, if you meet somebody that has many personalities or split personalities, you're more trying to figure out what they're really like. And what you really want to do with your company, with your service and your products, is really get aligned with who you are and then who your customer is, so that they can really connect with you on that personality level. So really the goal is also to create those deeper customer connections. So you have storytelling, which ends up with, having some trust with your customers, and it allows you to be very authentic to who you are. It doesn't have to be something that's staged, that doesn't relate to you, that doesn't connect to you, and or doesn't connect to your audience either. It really helps you create your defining meaning for what type of company you are, what type of person that you are. And it then also connects these stereotypes that we all talk about. And although stereotypes can be ultimately not great, they give you a sense of who someone is, who a company is, and what they stand for. So it's just the same thing in life as it is with your company. So your target audience, whoever your target audience, they actually help you define your personality too. So if your product is a really fun and exciting and adventurous product, more than likely your audience is going to be a fun-loving, adventurous group. And that's the kind of personality conversations that you want to bring together. So really kind of making sure that those pieces harmonize and they complement each other, what your company is and who you're talking to. And those personality traits are what are called archetypes. And that's really the focus of what we're talking about today. Archetypes were developed by Carl Jung, not developed, but come to fruition back in the 1900s. But Margaret and Carol are the ones who took that idea, what Carl Jung had, and pulled it into the brand. Because when you're talking about a company, think of any kind of company that's larger, a Nike, an Under Armour, FedEx, UPS, the difference between them, you can see personalities that start to align. And so they applied that to branding and to marketing. And that helped companies grow, create more awareness, create consistency, and then really get that customer connection. So what we're really going to dive into is the 12 key archetypes. And this list is kind of the overarching idea of what the 12 archetypes are. There are more than 12. There are obviously more personalities, but as I'm talking about it for you, it's good to limit the idea of what the archetypes are to these 12. Also, there's no reason why you can't have multiple archetypes for your brand, but it's always best to start with one, because again, consistency, telling the same story, talking the same way in the same direction are always really important. So you can kind of get an idea, from this list. You've got the caregiver, which is a brand that's more of a guardian or a healer. You've got a creator, which is an artist, the every man, every woman. They're a very good citizen, a great neighbor that you might have, all the way down to a ruler, which is, kind of more of a role model, can be a very strong leader. And a sage, which is more of a mentor role, or someone that teaches you maybe the services that you offer, that maybe you're a much more instructional type of company or person. So we're going to go into each one of these individually. So the caregiver, like I was mentioning, they're really kind of the brand, the company that's really taking care, like maybe taking care of the earth, like a Tom's or a Bomba's. Bomba's taking care of homelessness. So it's a characteristic that's really humble. They're cultivating hope. They're very optimistic. And so you can kind of tell that, again, a caregiver is very aligned with a person who is a caregiver. That's giving back, that's helping others, but also at the same time, it can be a brand story like a Campbell soup, helping you feel better, or this bar saves lives because it has a lot of give back in their programming for their company. So really their goal here in this brand archetype is really to help others and doing things for others. So the creator, which is, something more fun and vibrant, of creating things because they're celebrating and inspiring. They're very resourceful. Think Lego, you have to have all these different pieces and parts to build something that's much bigger than, what the parts are. Very practical brand essence, but, very imaginative. So imagery, visuals, all those kind of things, colorful. And you can see what I've also added on all of these pieces, and I didn't kind of call it out on the caregiver, but ideas of fonts and colors, because again, when we're talking about brand character, it's how you talk in your language and your words, but it's also the visuals that you had, visuals in your website, visuals in your brochures. So you can kind of see that some things might be softer in a caregiver. Maybe brighter in these pinks, kind of idea in the creator. This is only some ideas. Obviously, you could have creator that, is green and yellow like Crayola. And you can have fonts that are simpler or even more creative overall. But these are just sample colors and sample fonts for you. So the next one is the Every Man and Every Woman. And I like to make sure I have both of those in there because it really is about community, family, neighborhood, bringing people together. So very honest and genuine. A lot of times very simple, pleasures of life. So you can get the idea of like IKEA, or Budweiser, that's the everyman's kind of beer, Home Depot, very genuine and honest, helping you build things. So you can get the idea for the representation here. And, you again, from the sample fonts and sample colors, I do think that, the every man, every woman colors can be subdued, but you can kind of still see the idea of IKEA that they can be brighter also. So Explorer, one of my favorites, because it's really about being adventurous, going out, trying new things, being inquisitive. It has kind of this more youthful idea behind it also, but it can definitely have heritage with something like a Patagonia. But, it's about that adventure, promoting getting out, you have this freedom, or you're challenging, what's the opportunity to explore. And again, you can see a couple ideas with the fonts. It kind of gets that outdoor aspect of exploring and kind of have a little bit more of even of a rustic look to it. So, when I'm going over these, what's kind of good is to think in your mind, how does this relate to your company? Maybe it's like, toss this one out and keep thinking to the next one. Because what I like to do out of these 12 is to think of what's the top 3 of these archetypes that really align for you. Like all the way from the closest, the one that you're like, oh my God, that's totally it, to the next one. Because then as you kind of work through the worksheet, you'll be able to then really hone in on which one is most important to you. So the hero is, something that I always think is really aligned with athleticism, exercise, all those pieces, because it's always about, inspiring, being a hero, being there and strong and competent and competitive, and really looking to something like a Nike or an Under Armour. But at the same time, FedEx, they're going to be there for you all the time, getting it from here to there in the time frame that you need it. So you get an idea that something is going to be durable, it's going to be there for you. and always going to work harder for you. So same thing with the Duracell battery. But you can see in the fonts here, they get a little bit more bold and the colors get a little bit brighter. And really what you're trying to achieve here is, kind of sharing this idea of, the social connection, the competitiveness, but, the togetherness that really is something that you're promoting for your company products and or services. So the innocent, which is really something that's more subdued, a lot simpler, very wholesome. So companies you could think of are like Purely Elizabeth, which is granola cereal, or Chobani yogurt, Burt's Bees, personal care, very much for the environment, very simple. Conversations are around being happy or doing the right things or being really optimistic and helping people find what matters to them most, because they're doing what some people would say are the better things in their products and services and what they're offering. So a little bit softer fonts, softer colors, and it's that place where you can kind of say, all right, this might be natural skewed or organic skewed or family skewed, because it's really talking about, this idea of wholeness, honesty and wholeness and happiness. Okay. Now the jester. So think Cheetos, think M&Ms, because this is something that has more fun in it, jokes and playfulness, very fun loving. And the persona here is really something that, can be somewhat outrageous because you're having more of these entertaining interactions, one with your consumer, or just how you portray yourself, your company to your consumers. So if you think of Cheetos or M&Ms, they have that fun personality. They have more of the imagination with the visuals and the storytelling that's there. Same thing with something like Geico, a little bit more fun in a category that's, can be pretty dull, insurance. So when it comes to the font, you can get a little more fun, a little bit more creative, and with some pops of colors at the same time. Oops, did I just skip one? Let's see. Okay, there we go. The lover. This is a kind of an easy one for you to relate to if you think of Victoria's Secret or if you think of Godiva, chocolates, because it's really about this passion, about having a love of something that's really important and driven. A lot of times you're talking about dreams and inspirations and passions and desires, but you're building this relationship between people that is around love, that is around this importance of each other, community, friendships. It can be spiritual love, it can be romantic love, it can be all kinds of different types of love, but at the same time, that what's really coming across is that passion and that drive for something that brings enthusiasm to you, to your business, and or to your consumers. Okay. The magician. So my top one that I always like to bring up related to the magician is the most obvious one of Walt Disney, of course, because they're making things happen and it has this idea that's so magical and dreamy and all these pieces of being a kid and people as adults being a kid or enjoying that aspect, and believing that anything is possible for you as the company, you personally, or that you're trying to achieve for your consumer. So again, here, in the fonts, I think, you get a little bit more creative and whimsical in the fonts. And I love, in this respect, brighter colors for the colors for magician archetype because it gets a little bit more bold and bright, a little bit more on that visionary side. And one personality that I think is really important with this archetype is charisma. So, you know, we all know that person that just has all kinds of great charisma, and you just want to be around them and hang out with them because it's going to be fun. And, you know, they're going to be supportive, and they're going to have new ideas, and they're inspirational. And that's what I really think of with this personality, is that, you know, you can have a little bit more fun here and be really creative. All right, so the rebel is, you know, a personality, like we all know, that, you know, is really trying to shake things up. They're a risk taker, they're a rule breaker, they're trying to be revolutionary. So, you know, when you're thinking of your company, what are you doing something that's really innovative, that you're pushing the envelope on? Are you doing some social change or product ingredient change or materials change? So you have this perspective of like, I am making something happen, because then you're looking at really trying to really shake things up and do things new. So you can see, you know, in this respect, you know, you might have like a Harley Davidson or MTV when they first started, and, you know, bringing new technology out, new ideas, new platforms. Technology is probably one of the biggest things that you could think of when it comes to being a rebel of whatever's like right now. AI, you know, that's very, you know, kind of risk taking and trying something new. So you look at fonts here, you know, they're a little bit more ragged or, you know, kind of out there, so that they have more of that characteristic to them. I think that in the sample colors here, you don't have to always go with those darker browns and darker colors, because like even if you look at Virgin or MTV, I mean, they have that pop of color. You can see it in the Harley Davidson. They have that brighter color. So it's kind of like a combo of a dark and then a brighter color that can happen when it comes to your visuals that you attach here. So I'll kind of relate to, now that we're on this one, is that when you're thinking of archetypes and you're thinking of the words that you're portraying for your company and these visuals, the reason why you have to think of both is because people look at products and services in you through their eyes, right? They listen to what you say, and always having that consistent story, those consistent characteristics or words that you choose to have a conversation with somebody about your company are important. The visuals are also, especially when someone's just coming to the website, they might not read everything, but the visuals will say a lot about what type of personality your company is, or what type of personality you are. So there is a distinction also between choosing an archetype that is you personally as the founder versus a personality that is your company. And the example that I will use here is really kind of stating that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, is that if you're an introverted person, so you're more quiet, you're more reserved, you don't always like being the salesperson selling your products and services, but yet you have a really innovative product, or you're offering something that is super adventurous or exciting, but you're, again, kind of this introverted person, that means that the archetype that you want to pick is really about your company, right? So that it doesn't have to be about who you are, it's about your company. Now, on the flip side, if you are very charismatic and very adventurous, and what you're offering is adventure programming, let's say, so you're offering trips, or you're a guide, or you rent out rafts, whatever is that perspective, those two match, they're together, right? So you're charismatic, your company is charismatic, and then you can pull that archetype and be the same personality, you as a person and you as your company. So you can do both. What I want to make kind of known is that when those two conflict, hi Jamie, that when those two conflict, it's okay then to choose the personality for your company. So I want to make sure that makes sense. So I'll ask if anybody has any questions on that or concerns on the conflict there. All right, then I will go back to share my screen. All right, so let's move on to the ruler. So the ruler is, a little bit on the controlling side, but they have this power and integrity that's really important. So think of like a Mercedes-Benz or a Rolex watch. Like they have this, charisma that is leadership like, that they're a role model, they would be a mentor. So they have this personality that's very empowering, helps you be empowered, or you as the personality are empowering. And you're looking at the idea of, again, can be very innovative and, leading in whatever your category, your products and services are. So you can have much more of a regal kind of look, in that purples and the grays, or even in the font styles. So again, I have samples here. This will also be in your workbook, but it doesn't mean that you have to go down this road. It can also be what makes you feel like more powerful or more aligned with that archetype. Okay, so the last one is the sage. It happens to be one of my favorite ones because I'm in food and beverage, and it happens to be, where you're much more educational. You're talking about ingredients or your materials, or you're really willing as a company or a service provider pass on your expertise because you're guiding people and you're helping people make better decisions. You're inspiring them to be the best that they can be. But it's also that idea of like truth, like very intelligent teaching and showcasing that you're seeking education at the same time, and maybe even self-reflective, because if you look at something like Forbes or BBC or Google, these are all organizations that really teach, share information, educational, very informative. So again, I like it because in food and beverage, it's an area where I have clients that are really built on strong ingredients that have functional benefits. So being a sage and explaining what the benefits of those ingredients is a really good archetype for a lot of the brands that I work with. Okay, so I'm going to leave the screen up, but I'm kind of open it to see if anyone wants to share what their top choices for their company, or if they have 2 or 3 are undecided. If you want to share, that would be great, because I think it's really fun to kind of hear what you guys are thinking of these different archetypes.
I guess anybody start?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Okay. The first ones that catch me are creative or creator. It's interesting because I'm an inventor. I also happen to be a musician and an artist personally, but what we're doing is incredibly creative. But it was interesting to hear the idea of trying to select maybe 3, just to kind of that for lack of a better term, sing to you. So the creator, the magician, and maybe the sage, because I like mentoring what I do to people. So, or what we do, it's not just me. So those were the 3 that really kind of jumped out for me around what we do.
I think that they're all 3 great choices. Really well done and thoughtful. I think that your idea, the creator from the inventor side, because you did just share what you do, that it's not just about roofing, it's about more. And I think that, maybe someone else might have just kind of stopped at the roofing, the opportunity for roofing, but you said that there's for artistry and for your bathroom or for siding of your house, that there's many options to it. So I think that you're building that creativity piece of it. I would say the second one of the magician is another aspect of turning a little bit of the end product into your storytelling too, that it's not just about the material that you might put on your roof, but it's about creating art or creating, the inside of the house or whatever you're doing, that it's the end product of it. So I think, kind of the reason why I always say to pick 3 is it helps you bounce off what you like about each one and then finally pick one. Again, I will say that you can have multiple archetype choices, but in this instance, I like to, because you're just starting, is to pick one personality so you don't have this split personality. Because again, the idea of having archetypes is to get a consistent tone of voice and always kind of speak in the same direction and personality. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Steve.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Patty Denny. It says Subasa on the screen because I'm on my manager's computer. So you can see I'm not Japanese. Anyway,
yeah.
And I joined.
I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I'm glad I can say Patty now.
Yeah, you can say Patty. But anyway, I own Telluride Truffle. It's a chocolate company in Telluride. And I joined late, so sorry. I had customers in the shop and I had to work with them. But, I like the idea of the lover because we are very passionate about chocolate and our customers. And also, I like the magician because we're visionary and a catalyst. We help corporate accounts a lot with really presenting their customers with exactly the right look of our truffles. Like we'll change our packaging, etc., to fit with them. But we are a high-end chocolate company, and I also like to talk a lot about the chocolate world. And I like to think that we're in the forefront. So I do feel like we fit in the leader role model. We might be pretty well unknown, but still, I would like to think that's where we're headed. So.
That's awesome. I love the lover idea, even though I know it's obvious from the chocolate idea, but I do think that your development or your passion behind chocolate and coming up with new ideas and being creative and being innovative and being a leader really align there for sure.
Thank you.
Carrie,
Yeah.
did you want to share? Great.
Go next. I'm Carrie. I have a business, which is a fitness business, and its name is Joy Body Muse, but that's not what I'm here for today. I'm here for Guidestone because I'm helping with their marketing, and we're all about agriculture and making sure agriculture stays vibrant in our rural community. So we actually do that through food, providing food for the schools and the hospital, but we also connect retiring farmers with incoming new producers who can't afford land, as well as we foster enjoyment of little kids to become our next generation of ranchers and farmers. So the 3 that I kind of thought about was caregiving, every man, every woman, and sage. And the other thing is community is part of our whole mission. So being a part of the community, helping the community. So yeah, it's kind of, I guess the biggest message that would go along with what we have already is probably, I'm going to say every man, every woman.
I think you're probably pretty spot on there, because I think that the idea of growing the community, especially in agriculture, like bringing up the little kids, with the, historical farms that are happening and connecting those 2 things says a lot about community, right? Because you're trying to bring, people together that are right there in that community. And I think the piece that you mentioned about the sage comes in with all the education elements of it. So I think in this respect, I could totally see those 2 personalities, aligning for you versus like you, Steve and Patty, like trying to really stick with one. Your outline, Carrie, is really because it's building community, growing community, but there's all those education pieces in there because, I know that, people who are trying to build their own, farm system, but don't have the land, they need to be educated by someone who can mentor them. And the whole idea of, kids raising the next generation of farmers is quite the task. So I appreciate that you do that. But at the same time, it's a lot of education because you've got to really inspire kids in a fun way and an educational way. I like to call it edutainment because it's education and entertaining at the same time, especially for young kids. So
Right.
that's great. Thanks for sharing. Awesome. So I'm glad that we got that one-on-one time there. That was super great. I hope it was helpful for everyone. So I did a couple workshops, I think in May and then also in June about company vision and mission and your reasons to believe for the company. I know that Devin can probably put those in the email for you to go back and look at because those are on demand. But when you're looking at your archetype, all the things that we talked about today and all the things that you guys share are really great drivers for your choice of archetype. So your vision, your mission, what does your company mean? Who's your founder? Are they charismatic? Are they introverted? Is your target audience, really adventurous or needs the education? What are those pieces? I also think that, really looking at who your competitors are is important because if let's just, do an example of every one of your competitors is doing the same kind of brand personality as maybe the caregiver, let's just say, then that what you want to be able to do for your consumers who are probably very similar to your competitors is stand out in a different way and choose a different personality line, a different way to communicate, different colors, brighter, darker, whatever it is that could be the opposite of what your competition is doing. And then just like you all kind of said, what's your gut reaction? What is the one thing, the archetype that says, this is the one, I feel it, feels good, it aligns with me personally, or it aligns with my consumers. And how does that, kind of come together? So I think these 5 things really help you find that match. Although I think you guys all, initially just talked about those pieces. So I want to talk a little bit. Let me show you the workbook. I'm gonna try and close out of this. Why can't I close out? Here we go. That I have a workbook that you guys will get a link to, and it basically has some really great kind of pointers at the beginning of what I talked about at the beginning. So if you, like you said, Patty, you missed that beginning, a lot of information is there. And then each one of these archetypes is outlined just like I showed you, but I've also highlighted a second sheet that really talks about the characteristics. So not all these characters, it doesn't mean that all 10 of these things have to be exactly what your company's like or your service is like, but you want to highlight like 3 or 4 of these because that's what then when you're starting to talk about your company, that you really talk in this caregiver example, really humbly, or you're cultivating hope, you're really optimistic. So these pieces, these characteristics can help you drive what your content strategy is. So all these are outlined here, just like I went through. And then at the end, I've got a couple worksheets that actually ask you some questions. What is your vision? What are your products and services? Because those 5 things that I called out really in this worksheet can help you kind of figure those things out. So what characteristics are really important from the archetypes that are listed? What is your first choice? What is your second choice? And really kind of figuring that out. And it seems like you guys all really aligned here, but it will help you get even more fine-tuned because then you can kind of have conversation with other team members or other people, within your business to help you actually get aligned on what that personality is. So I think that if you guys have any questions that you can obviously put them in the chat now or ask some in a second here. But I'm more than willing to, share my time with you guys to kind of walk through some of the questions that you have. And then I also know that Devin and Jamie, they have a lot of really great business consultants that you can work with also. Right. Does anyone have any additional questions about the archetypes or any direction?
I was just gonna ask if you could, with the recording, email out the link to the other 2 workshops you mentioned.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. And then can you give an example of what combining those 2 archetypes would look like? You did Sage and Every Woman.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, that every man, every woman, it's really, they're very down to earth. So it's, you know, talking about the community, it's inviting kind of that mentor mentee idea, because you're thinking through like how you're building something, right? So you're saying that the historical farms, you know, they're either going to go away, or you need to raise the kids or bring in other people that are trying to do farms, but they don't have the land or they don't have the education, or they're like, they just like to garden, but they're like, I want to get into this industry and do that teaching part of it. So that's when the Sage part comes into it, where you become, you know, very focused on content or sharing best practices, or having, you know, one of the historical farms have a conversation of what it was like when they started, what it's like today, and how does that help, you know, someone who now wants to start their own farm. And I think, you know, like, you know, all the fonts and the colors were all kind of suggestions or, you know, sampling. But I think because this is very agriculture, you know, think of those earthy colors, you know, and the simple kind of fonts and creativity that all ages can relate to. But at the same time, you could kind of harken back to the good old days, you know, of, you know, what kind of farms look like before, but knowing that you could bring a modern twist into it. So you're like, you're connecting both the good old days and the modern days. Hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. Well,